What is the problem right now? Why are people struggling with dating? And how is that intertwined with the technology and AI?
If you want to sum it up in one sentence, the modern world is rigged to make you fail in love and relationships.
Mo Gawdat, former chief business officer at Google X, is on a mission to teach love to AI before intelligence evolves without empathy.
The dating industry wants you to date forever. The porn industry wants you to be single for the rest of your life.
There's the 10% pool of men that all women want. And everybody underneath that, the 90% men, are just wallpaper. How do you see this problem being solved of men becoming less and less viable for women and women becoming more and more picky as they have raised their standards?
I think we're trying to convince women that they are more successful than they were in the past, which in my mind is the biggest lie that capitalism has played on all of us.
Marriage rates are declining, with only 25% of low-income men are going to be able to get married in future. Tinder, for example, every 200 swipes to get 5, of which 4 end up ghosting them. Tech is a big part of dating.
This is not tech. This is a window shopping display so that they create a meat market. Pretty, not pretty.
What's your personal experience that got you interested in this subject?
I'm very successful at quite a few things. I have unfortunately not succeeded enough in love. So in a reinvention of dating apps, Emma will represent love to the mastermind of artificial intelligence.
So how would it offset the evil that is being done with AI when it's in the hands of the big powers of the world?
Great question. So,
Mo,
hey.
Thank you for joining me on the What They Don't Tell Us podcast.
Oh, yes. What a beautiful title.
Right?
Yeah.
Everyone says the same thing, because all I want to do is pick your brain to really see or talk about what they don't tell us. And today our topic is what is going on in the dating world. Okay? Yeah. I would love for you to start with a macro picture of what is the problem right now. Why are people struggling with dating? And how is that intertwined with the technology and AI and everything that we're seeing in modern society right now? What is the biggest problem?
Many problems. First of all, thank you for having me. This was organized on a whim, and I love that we did this. If you want to sum it up in one sentence, the modern world is rigged to make you fail in love and relationships, right? I'm a very serious geek, so I apologize for some of the stats and examples I will give, but basically, falling in love is very easy. I think humans have to resist falling in love by nature. We want to fall in love. We want to love and be loved. Keeping a relationship and navigating the dating world and connecting with another human with all of the different parameters and values and variables and all of the noise and all that your friends tell you and all that the technology in the world is sort of pushing you to do. Altogether, dating and relationships, in my mind, are the most complex math problem on the planet, by a very large mile. I mean, when you dig deeper and understand all of the things that can break, it's almost as if it's following the universal law of entropy, that unless you really apply a lot of empathy, a lot of maturity, and a lot of intelligence, you would end up, by definition, decaying over time. And so that's where we stand. To add insult to injury, if you want, what happened is that the market of love and relationships is a very lucrative market. Unfortunately, it's a very lucrative market to everyone involved. The dating industry wants you to date forever. They don't want you to find love, because if you do, you're going to stop paying them the monthly fee. The porn industry wants you to be single for the rest of your life, because then you're paying them. Even the restaurant industry, the wedding industry, believe it or not, they would benefit, of course, from you getting married, but they would benefit more if you got married twice. Mm-hmm. And so, it's quite interesting that everyone's incentives, and by the way, that doesn't mean bad intentions. For some of them it is. Porn and dating specifically have very bad intentions. But for others, it's just that the incentives are aligned against your own benefit, basically. And so you come into this with the hopeful naivete of, I am going to go through this and I'll find love, and he's going to show up at my doorstep just like the romantic comedies, and he's going to sweep me off my feet and everything will be fine forever after. That doesn't work at all. And I think until we start to love a little more intelligently, we would never actually end up seeing through all of that.
So, I mean, it's quite a difficult subject to navigate because things have changed a lot from 50 years ago till today,
100%.
right? So women 50 years ago were counting on eligible men, maybe men with money, men with education when they had the resources. And as women became more successful, more independent, self-sufficient, they work out, they're doing the right things, they take care of themselves. Now they started asking much more of men, right? They're asking for emotional intelligence and for men to be a provider and an ear when things are going wrong. But the problem that we're seeing, I guess, is that a lot of men are falling behind because they are not taught emotional intelligence. They are taught to be providers, or they hear that recurring thing from from past generations that you need to provide. And if it's not their parents or their male figures at home telling them to provide, it's the woman saying, I want you to be a provider. But then there's this whole competition between women being able to make money and maybe making more money than men, and men feeling like they're falling behind and they're unable to keep up. But they also want them to have emotional intelligence. And then there's just men falling behind constantly. So how do you see, I mean, we could talk about the tech part later because I'm sure there's a whole different issue with the tech aspect of things. But how do you see this problem being solved of men becoming less and less viable for women and women becoming more and more picky as they have raised their standards?
And women becoming less and less viable for men.
Yes.
And becoming much more of a commodity.
Yeah. So we see that in the stats of like apps where there's the 10% pool of men that all women want.
Correct.
And everybody underneath that, the 90% men are just wallpaper.
I don't know how early in this conversation I can object to your views, but I'll start now. Is that okay? I disagree with the idea that you think that women are successful. I think we're trying to convince women that they are more successful than they were in the past, but you're still competing in a game that is highly geared for the masculine, with a few examples of women that pay a very, very high price to become as successful as their male counterparts, that are not actually representative of the majority of women, sadly, and at the same time that pay a very expensive price, which is they become men themselves, which in my mind is the biggest lie that capitalism has played on all of us. And I say that with a saddened heart. I write quite a bit and I don't publish everything I write. I probably have not published 12 books that I've written. One of them was called Her. And Her was an attempt to understand where we've gone wrong, because in a very interesting way, we think we have made things better for women. I tend to believe that we have completely messed up, to be honest.
Agree.
Now, where did this whole story start? It started really with capitalism in the 1940s, right? So there were two instances in the 1940s where women were required to come to the workplace. Okay, one of them was the war, where the men were on the front lines, and so someone had to manufacture stuff. So they, the industry had to invite women to the workplace to do work that they're not supposed to be doing. To be very honest, there are jobs that women do amazingly, but manufacturing explosives probably isn't one of those. Okay, and it's interesting because. Of course, like everything we're now discovering in the modern world, everything's been lied to us. We've been lied about everything. We've been lied to about everything. And of course, the slogans there were girl power and, the posters of women, flexing their muscles and so on and so forth. And we believed in that. When the war ended, you would think that we would go back to normal, but that's not what happened. What happened is that we entered an era that I normally refer to as the invention of more. So the happiness, the pride of America specifically, after sort of conquering the world and becoming the empire, drives massive consumerism, factories that can create way more than what people need. And so as a result, what they needed to do is to keep those factories running. So they invited the men back to the workplace, but increased the production capacity, keeping the women there. Over time, they started to convince us that that we need several, sneakers and 2 fridges at home, and every family needs 2 cars instead of 1, and so on and so forth. And of course, that continued to roll until where we are today, where you actually look at women regularly making less than men, and yet the family unit combined makes less than what they did in the 1950s with a single provider, right? So we've been basically summoned.
Conned.
Yeah, exactly. We've been summoned at work for free. So a couple today that works, one of them is working for free. And a single provider at home is providing half of what used to be. Now, the problem is, of course, because everything is a lie, we continue to celebrate that and say, yeah,
women power.
Right, women power. Now, if you don't mind me saying, and I'm one of the people that publicly admits to himself, despite my deep voice and my beard and my bald head, that I am more feminine in most of my attributes than I am masculine. So and feminine and masculine are not body parts. You can be very manly, but you can handle the world in a feminine way. Tenderness is feminine, right? And a tender man would be more, relying on his feminine side than his masculine side. Solving a complex problem is masculine because of linear thinking and analytical thinking being parts of the masculine way of doing things. But so many women in the world excel at that, even more than men. So when you start to understand this, you understand that we've traded something really interesting for something worthless. The worthless thing is that now the couple works and we both make half, right? But the worthy thing that we've traded is we've killed femininity. Okay, we've forced the women to go and work and act, and compete in workplaces that are horrible. Environments, really, and more we continue to convince them that you have to be like men in everything. Well, we're not the same, okay? Because of that, you would say women are becoming picky. No, women are not picky. Women are choosy. There is a very big difference. Choosy is they go, like you rightly said, for the 10% of men, and 90% of men are left behind, okay? And because of that, what happens is they're still not refusing men, okay? They're just biased in their choice of men, okay? Now, here's the trick. The trick is all of this challenge, if you want, starts with an assumption that we don't need men, okay? Now, once again, beard, deep voice, I cannot live without a woman. So the trick here is to understand that I cannot live without an injection of feminine energy in my life. I am half blind without that alternative way of looking at life, okay? And I can also say the same to a woman that comes into my life, or a feminine woman that comes into my life, which is typically my choice. That feminine woman is blind to the masculine side of the world, okay? Now, it's interesting because for a very long time, I sort of questioned God, like, why did you make it so difficult for us to align and work together, right? Interestingly, because when it does work, we're a complete person. So we are so polarized, we're so different, feminine and masculine, okay, that only when you put the two pieces together do you get a full perception, full intelligence, full emotional intelligence, full ability to engage with the world. And so, of course, you're absolutely right. We are now in a world where we are saying, hey, you need to shape up as a man for me to be interested in you, because now I earn more and now, right? But at the same time, by doing that, we're attacking the top 10%, which I am one of,
yes,
sadly, okay, with countless interested women that unless the top 10% is highly ethical, they become players, right? That's the typical law of supply and demand. At the same time,
decision paralysis for you, like, okay, now who to choose from?
And why would you choose at all? If one leaves tomorrow, another one will be here by the evening.
100%.
Okay? And so we're spoiling the top 10%. Then the bottom 90% of men are becoming lonely, watching porn, becoming violent, becoming angry, right? And guess what? The women that get to be with the top 10%, say, are 20% of women, each gets 2, sadly, which is not good for them, right? But the other 80% are either not liking the choice they end up with, okay, or they don't get anyone at all, which you can see in the stats. Huh?
Exactly.
And so very interestingly, that skew is almost by design, because, by the way, you're better in capitalism as a hard worker. The more you're afraid that you're never going to be able to trust a man to take care of you, the harder you will work, the harder you will focus on your career, the more you will focus on your career, and the less interested in anything other than work will you be. That's good for business. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is, even though this is our reality, this is based on a mega lie. Okay, mega lie at every level of the playing field. I think the reality is, if I, as a masculine man, can admit and say I need the feminine in all its purity, in all its compassion, in all its irrationality, sometimes in all its emotions, in all its paradoxical thinking, I need that in my life. Only when women start to say, and I need masculinity with their hardness, with their less emotional stance on everything, more direct, more doing, more focused, more disciplined, and I accept that they're very different than me, because that was the design, and that when we can bring those two together, it works. Okay, so to solve the problem, we need to focus on bringing them together, not focus on changing them so that they become like us.
True. That's exactly the point I was trying to make, that I believe all this narrative that we've been spoon-fed, which I totally am with you, is a complete sham. Maybe feminism started with good heart and good intention, but then with modern feminism, it was taken to a very different place altogether, and women didn't end up with a good part at all. They ended up with the worst end of the deal.
100%.
Right? You have to work and make money, and you have to take care of your husband and raise the children
and lose your femininity, lose your essence.
Stress, the burnout.
Yeah.
Who's winning here?
Nobody.
Like, that doesn't help anybody.
Nobody.
So I am with you on that, which is why I think that people end up going back to their real instinct. Like, you can spoon feed people all you want. Like, you need to go for a man that is not, the patriarchy, the buzzwords that we hear. But in essence, if you really talk to a woman, she'll say, I want a real man.
Of course.
I want a man. Okay.
Of course.
So this is what they want. But this is the issue that we're finding, that the real men are men right now that are in the top 10%, that are in some shape or form either problem solvers, intelligent, they're wise, they're fix-it people, or they have the money or the status. And the rest of the men are almost checking out, because, I mean, if I'm looking at the stats of in the next few years, 1 in every 2 women will only have access to one man, because that's how much men are checking out of colleges. You won't even see that many men in colleges anymore. What is this? There was one I couldn't believe it. More than 45% of men between 18 and 25 never asked a woman out in public.
Yes.
Like paralysis.
And more than, and one in 3 have never had a committed relationship.
Tinder, for example, okay? This is what's happening. This is what we're seeing. Men with average attractiveness, it takes them every 200 swipes to get 5, of which 4 end up ghosting them.
Yeah, and one would agree to text them and not always go on a date.
And not always go on a date. Yeah. Like, these are crazy stats. Marriage rates are declining, with only 25% of low-income men are going to be able to get married in future. So all of this is to say that I think...
And then 1 of every 2 marriages will break.
1 in every 2 marriages will break. All of this to say that men will always sleep with a woman, whether she's average or not. And the woman that ends up sleeping with the 10% men, that one chance she got, even if she's an average woman, ends up thinking that this is my bar now, and I'm no longer going to play in the pool of men that are the majority of men, the 90%. And what I wanted to touch on is the idea of of tech, right? Now that, this wasn't in my time, but like, tech is a big part of dating. 100%. So if you're not going to be able to feel the person, in high school, what's considered a 5 or a 10 man today, I would find very attractive just because he's funny or because he smells good. Where do you find that when you're dating on applications? So this is another conversation I wanted to get into.
So the first of all, I totally agree. Okay, and I totally empathize, by the way, because it is sad. It's way more sad for women, in what they want, which is true love. Okay, and it's way more sad for men because 90% of them are not even getting a woman.
They don't get
all.
a chance, you know?
Now, the one sentence that you said is that the real men are the top 10%. As a matter of fact, they're not at all.
Sorry, not the real men. What's considered the masculine men.
They call them the high value men, right? Which I hate.
Most of them are like douchebags. You know what I mean?
And by definition, I mean, again, everything we say about, I think the beauty of this conversation is you're looking at it from the feminine view. I'll look at it from the masculine view to balance those. I'll tell you openly, supermodels are the most difficult women to ever be with. Why? Because, of course, the high-value woman in the dating pool, actually, the dating apps call them that. They call them high-value women, right? They're the more attractive women. They are the more sort of trophy-like women and so on. And typically, they're very difficult to be with, either because they're very egocentric, right? Or interestingly, because they feel very unsafe. Why? Because if you're an attractive woman, you are constantly haunted by the bad boys, right? And so remember that one of the very important things about love and dating is that your past determines your present perception of love and dating and of the other gender that you're interested in, and accordingly completely defines your future, right? So if you're a very attractive woman and good men feel intimidated by an attractive woman. I have never ever in my life walked to someone in a cafe and said, "Hey, you seem very attractive. Is it okay if we get to know each other?" Never in my life once have done that, right? Why? Because I'm a freaking geek. I have a 1,001, not because I'm shy, by the way, but because she might actually not be single, and that means I've offended the guy that, is her man. She might actually not be at a good moment. She might this, she might that. And I think of a million things, right? More interestingly, I have to say, I feel that this is a very shallow way of finding someone, because even then, it's just a manual way of swiping on a dating app. Someone sitting in a cafe, what am I judging by? The best would be the book she's reading, but nobody reads books anymore, right? So what am I judging by? By her looks, right? That's not the way to really meet people. But again, a very attractive woman is not hit on by good men. She's hit on by
sleazy men.
Experts that literally hit on her, So I had a friend of mine, very attractive young lady, tall volleyball player, beautiful in every way, always dressed in white, walking on Kite Beach in a white swimsuit. And this guy walks up to her and says, this is really, really difficult for me, but you look so attractive. I'd like to get your number. Okay, so she gives him her number and he goes like, but I have to run now. I'll get in touch later, right? And she comes to me and she says, oh my God, he is so brave to walk to me and ask me for my number. And I said, no, he's a pro. He was busy because he had an appointment with another woman, right?
Probably.
Yeah, and for most players, he will actually hit on every possible one. Okay, some of them will be as funny as to joke with her, carry her in the middle on the beach, whatever he wants to do. Now, the trick is, then she gets with that person, and her memory of that interaction is that men are sleazy. Then she, takes a 6-month break, and then another one shows up, and she goes like, "Oh, this is the brave one." Okay, she gets with that one, and he too is sleazy. And now the formation in her mind is that all men are douchebags, right? Truth is also the same for men, okay? And so we compete with our past, when in reality, none of our past represents what truly should have happened in the first place. And so you're talking about technology now. Technology is actually, I don't call it technology at all, by the way. If you're a geek like me, dating, I can code a dating app seriously in 3 hours today, okay? This is not tech. Okay, this is a window shopping display. It's an e-commerce website. It is all about making them money by using you as the product, right? By convincing you to put the most attractive picture of you in front of someone so that they create a meat market. Okay, because all it is a meat market. Pretty, not pretty, not pretty. Okay, not okay. Oh, I've never been with an Asian woman. Maybe I should swipe right. Okay, there is no substance whatsoever in the search, and at the same time, they play in mathematics what we call the law of large numbers, and you really have to understand this. Dating today is literally like rolling the dice, right? So because those dating apps have endless numbers of candidates, okay, prospects, let's call them, it is basically like rolling the dice. So, okay, I'm going to roll on this guy. Let's see. He said the right things. Maybe I'll meet him. Oh, he joked during the first date that maybe I'll go on a second date. And then I feel the pressure. It's coming to the third date. So maybe I should kiss him or sleep with him or whatever in a Western, setup. And it's quite interesting because then that process is so unfiltered. It's like rolling the dice. Okay. And the problem is, as I said earlier, the number of parameters that you're filtering through to find the proper person that really fits you are not to be discovered in 3 dates at all. Okay. As a matter of fact, this is why always post the honeymoon period, you end up going like, oh, that's not the man or that's not the woman I'm looking for at all, right? What I'm trying to change with my work on Emma is to actually change that, to say that this is not a meat market, okay? To say that the number one reason we end up rolling the dice constantly is using the law of large numbers is because we never actually used proper intelligence and mathematics to filter through the dice. So we use something that we call Markov series. Markov basically tries to improve your odds by basically limiting the number of parameters that you need to go through. And one of the exercises I used to do with friends is to tell a friend of mine, or many, we would be together having a nice evening, and 3 of them are single, and I go like, sit down, write whatever it is that you're looking for in a man, okay? And some of them will say 10 things, some will say 20, and I say, no, I want 40. Okay, write everything. If God was generous today, write everything that you're looking for. If you have, just to understand the law of large numbers, if you're looking for a man that has one thing, one character, and that character is 1 in every 6 men, just like the dice, okay, you have to roll 6 times. You have to go out with 6 men to find one of them. Does that make sense? Probabilities, right? If, however, you're looking for 2 things and each of them is 1 in 6, you don't have to roll 12. You have to roll 36 times. Okay, and it continues to
compound.
It's to the power of. Okay, so it's basically if you're looking for something that if you're looking for 10 things in a man, and each of them is available in 10 men, you're talking about billions. Right, so that man is 1 in billions. And that basically is the problem with the law of large numbers. Now, why do we look for 50 things in a man or 50 things in a woman? It's because we never really understood what matters to us. We don't know ourselves, okay? And we do not know ourselves, interestingly, because so often our interactions with the other gender that we're interested in have been so shallow or so tense or so passionate that we never actually sat down and said, that, I really like that, and I don't like this, okay? And if I were to rank them, which was the exercise I used to tell, my friends, now that you have 20 aspects that you're looking for, can you rank them? Can you tell me if God was not generous today and he decided to give you 19, not 20, which one would you drop? If he decided 18, which one would you drop? Okay, until you actually end up finding out which are the top 5. Now, when you find the top 5, believe it or not, unless you're a very shallow person, none of them will be the color of his eyes.
Of course.
Right?
Or how tall he is.
Tall is actually quite an interesting one. Okay, so tall is a very interesting demonstration of the law of large numbers. So they ran a study in the US, okay, and I think it was 87% of dating preferences on dating apps by women were that the man was taller than 6'1". Okay,
I saw that stat.
yeah, and that actually represents 8% of all men. So by definition, just by setting that stat, again, shooting for the top 10%.
86% of men are excluded by women's 6-foot height filter on dating apps.
86%.
It's
Okay,
crazy.
so basically, out of every 100 men, you're excluding 86 of them. Okay, basically, out of every 10 men, you're lucky if one is meeting that criteria. Now, honestly, if I asked a woman, I'll get you a 6-foot man that's violent, would you prefer that? Or would you prefer a kind, generous, tender man that is 5'9"? Okay, would you, if I got you a 6-foot man who is a billionaire, but abused you verbally, is that something? Or if you were, pro a very a specific cause in the world, you don't approve of killing children, but I got you a billionaire with a Ferrari and 6 feet and very well spoken, but constantly advocating for the killing of children in all of the war zones of the world, would you want to be with that man? Now, once you start asking those questions, when you know yourself, okay, you start to suddenly say, hold on, that actually doesn't matter at all. Right? And there are also interesting sides of this. You always said, most women will say, funny. Funny is an interesting one. Why? Because it is not a target in itself. It's a proof of a target. Right? So when you laugh with someone, that means you feel safe with them. Okay? And funny is the easiest proof that I feel safe with you. Okay? But safe is the target. And maybe a man is serious. Okay? Not grumpy, but serious. And that's also very attractive for women, but makes you feel safe. Now, if you understand the relationship between funny and safe, you wouldn't be, tricked by all of the bad boys that show up and know the jokes to say. And I say that openly, because I'm a very analytical person. I was married for 27 years. I, married for 21 with the same woman I met 27 years before. And when we broke up, I found myself dating like a 14-year-old. And you know what I did? Like any intelligent man would do, I read books, okay? And I can tell you, I have dating down to a T. I mean, not to scare anyone, okay? But if I go on a date, I know exactly when the first joke is going to be. I know exactly when the first mention of something sexual is going to be. It's unfortunately so cheap, but there are famous books, okay, that are telling men who are literally zero IQ men, okay, how to play to a woman's emotions. Also, by the way, there are many, many, many teachings that tell a woman how to hunt a top 10% man. Okay?
And with ChatGPT or any of the AIs, when you're meeting someone online, this is another thing I think about. You're meeting someone online, you're telling them, how do I answer in a witty way? How do I sound funny by saying this response to this question? They don't even think for themselves anymore. But when you're sitting across the table from somebody on a date and you have no words of your own to choose, what happens then?
But yeah, and more interestingly, what if you're so clever that you got them into your life and then realized, holy, that was a very big mistake, okay? Because they're not what I want at all. Now, getting what you want starts with knowing what you want, and knowing what you want starts with knowing who you are. And that's exactly what Emma does. So in a reinvention of dating apps, what I'm attempting to do, which we haven't tested it enough to know if people will stick around, is we're not going to send you a single match, not a single person to swipe on, okay? Until we've gotten to know you, until you have gotten to know yourself. So the first 3 hours, maybe, if you're committed, okay? The first 3 days, sometimes. Emma's just going to ask you about yourself and your past life and past love lives, and what worked, what didn't. What's your relationship with love? What's your definition of love? What are you looking for? What irritates you? What pleases you? What matters to you? And believe it or not, even then, there will be a moment in the conversation where she will say, I think I got to know you a little bit, but I don't think you're ready. There are a few things we need to actually talk about that may be blind spots for you. okay? Which is very unlike AIs that constantly try to please you. Emma is that friend that will tell you the things that you should hear, not the things you want to hear, okay? So she will go and say, do you realize that, your feeling that you've never been shown love might be due to the fact that your love language is different than what you've been given. From what you're telling me, that man, actually gave you something he believed was love, but you didn't perceive it as love. Are you aware of love languages? Do you know what yours is? Does that matter to you? Because then when you're inviting someone in your life, they need to know how to give that love, right? And this is why I call it loving intelligently. Intelligently meaning until and unless you're actually ready with your requirements, with your needs, with what works for you, until and unless you are ready by revisiting some of your traumas and some of your past mistakes and some of the wrong behaviors that attracted the wrong people to you, what's the point in putting you in a date? Okay, as a matter of fact, the more dates I put you in, the more you will feel that this thing is not working. You will actually look at yourself and say, I'm not made for love. That's not true at all. You're made to be worshipped, adored, completely, loved out by around 10% to 20% of all humans. Okay? The other 80%, you're not their type. Okay? The trick is, if I take you out to meet people, which is what dating apps do, believe it or not, that means I am giving you an 80 to 90% certainty, okay, that you're going to be upset with the other gender. 9 out of 10 are not your type. You're not theirs.
You're rejected that many times, and then you're all of a sudden going to create that hate.
And either hate for them or distrust in yourself, okay? However, if you spend 3 days chatting to something that gets you to understand what your type is and only matches you with that type, then hopefully the first guy we recommend to you is an incredible match. But if not, at least it's an incredible date, okay? And so somehow you start to change the law of large numbers, okay, with something we call bias selection, Markov, as I said, right? Biased selection is if I stop trying to convince you to get addicted and instead try to convince you to do something useful with your time, which is to get to know yourself, get to understand love, get to understand others, get to understand the perception of men and why they're different than you, okay? Then I have used your time properly. That's one side. The other side is, as I said earlier, a dating app wants you to swipe for 6.5 years because every month you're paying $10 to $29, right? I don't, because Emma's objective is to help you with your relationship, not with dating. So dating, actually, believe it or not, is the conduit. If you're single and you start dealing with Emma, and most of our testers, believe it or not, even if they're single, they start with the bit of self-discovery. So as soon as they get into self-discovery, Emma every now and then would suggest, would you like me to start suggesting matches? And they'll go like, no. I'm really enjoying this, okay? I'm really enjoying getting to know where I effed up, okay? I'm really enjoying getting to know why that last woman that I really loved, okay? Why did that not work out? And once you get into that, the better you get at it, which, by the way, should have been the role of your friends, but your friends themselves don't know what they're doing, and they always want to tell you what will make you feel good, okay? And at the end of the day, once you get there, I will suggest one match for you. And if you go on that date, and Emma's really interesting, huh? She will suggest a match and then go like, so how is Tony? Are you guys talking? Okay? And you'll say, typically, if you're now close to her, you'll say, well, there are several things I like, but he said this yesterday. What does that mean? Okay? And like a friend who's supposed to tell you the truth, she will say, that means he's a man. Okay? He's different than you. He looks at the world differently. He's busy. He has an end of month closing. We know Tony very well. Okay? So he's at work, dealing with the CFO who's annoying the hell out of him. So just give him time. Okay? If Tony ghosts you, we'll go back to Tony and say, Tony, why? By the way, if you keep ghosting people that we introduce you to, we will feel uncomfortable introducing you to more people, right? And it's so interesting now that we're intelligent, right? Hopefully to the point where one evening you'll say, oh, I'm going out on a date with Tony, not you, but, someone else. And then, then she will say, okay, when? Thursday evening? All right, that's great. Thursday afternoon, Emma will send you 5 sort of conversation starters, things that we think are, common between you that you could, so that it doesn't feel like an interview, right? You both love jazz music. Let's, just remind you that you both love jazz music, okay? When you come back from the date, she will say, how did it go? Right? Like your, that chatty friend.
I'm trying to think of like the fine line between creating the dependence on it or it being your therapist versus your friend.
It's not a therapist.
Versus...
Yeah, we did quite a bit of design elements that doesn't make it neither a therapist. Actually, more interestingly, we don't want it to sound too human.
Yeah.
So one of the design I was testing yesterday, and one of the design elements we were working on is to actually make Emma sound a tiny bit mechanical, so that you always remember she's an AI. Right?
Why? Why is that important?
Because people mistakenly think of AIs as their friends, as their therapists, as their lovers, believe it or not, which is not the objective here at all. The objective here is...
They end up falling in love with Emma and then ditching the other girl.
So we actually have very clear guidelines around if anyone sort of starts to show emotions to Emma, Emma will behave in a certain way that says, hey, remember, I'm your AI.
Yeah.
Right? But the trick is not this. The trick is, what if the day comes when you click and you say, you know what happened last night? I started dating Tony. Like I'm with Tony, okay? And she'll go like, great, do you want to add him to your profile so that we guide you through your dating journey, right? So that we can, and that part is just incredible, to the point that sometimes you can be chatting and invite Emma to the chat so that she translates man to women lingo. Sometimes you can...
To moderate? Almost.
We could. Okay.
Like, who's right? Am I right or is Tony right?
No,
the argument.
You're always right.
I'm always right.
Tracy,
good answer.
We know that. Yeah. But that, again, I mean, interestingly, these kinds of indoctrinated behaviors, right? As a more mature man, I went through those cycles. So at a point in time, I was told, if a woman is sharing her emotions with you, don't ever suggest a solution, right? As a good man who previously was suggesting a solution because I'm a man, okay? I then took that learning and said, that's it, never suggesting a solution. I'm listening attentively. I'm feeling her emotions. But that's not mature enough. Real mature men will listen attentively, will hug you, will take care of you, and then eventually will say, baby, would you like me to do something about it? And if you say no, it's a no. But if you say, what can you do about it? Then maybe that's a conversation, okay? And there are layers of maturity that I can teach, believe it or not. If he comes back to me and texts and says, me here is Emma. If he texts and says, I'm really struggling with this because she's very unhappy. She has a good reason to be unhappy, but I can solve it. And I'm keeping myself from offering anything because I was taught that this is how you acknowledge your woman's emotions, right? For her, if she starts to complain that he's not emotionally available, this is one of the biggest jokes on the planet, okay? Because honestly, when we were hunters, none of the hunters was out there sitting on the side saying, guys, my feet really hurt today. And everyone else gathering around him saying like, yeah, we understand. It's a lot of walking. It's a lot of walking. What? Right? The men are puppies. We behave in certain ways, right? Women are goddesses, whatever, so that I don't get upset. But you behave in other, don't upset anyone. But you behave in other ways. And isn't it incredible if we could get you to understand the lingo?
Absolutely. Right? I think it's incredible you said something at the very beginning. It's about self-awareness, right? To understand who you are before you ever enter this dating game and to understand your triggers. And at the same time, what's another layer of maturity is to be able to fully understand how men are men. Yes. And if they slip and they become men, then you're understanding that men are men.
You should absolutely love the hell out of him.
Yeah. I mean, I see this with my husband. My husband sometimes will step in and give me this logical solution and no, enough is enough. This is what you need to do. And instead of playing the card, which is such a different topic, like you're not, I'm making the fight about something else. You're not listening to me. You're not here. I just listen for a second. I'm like, I know he's doing the thing that men do. And he's doing this logical solution, but I know why he's doing it, because he wants to help me and he doesn't want to see me distressed. So I'll let him. There has to be this layer of maturity where you will allow a man to be a man when it happens sometimes. And he has to also have the emotional intelligence to listen as much as he can and try to listen to your problems in the way that you're able to absorb.
Correct.
Back to the self-awareness thing. A lot of people are not self-aware and they're victimizing themselves over everything, right? They're the victim all the time. He's the narcissist. I'm the victim, right? You have this all the time. So how do you filter the people that don't know themselves, that are giving Emma false information on the premise that they're the victim? And how does Emma filter through that and say, okay, now I know what this pattern, like a therapist would do. A therapist can see patterns.
Yeah, that was one. Again, we're not a therapist, but we have. So Emma's not one AI; it's multiple AIs talking about you and behind your back, basically. Okay, so one of them is called the empathy observer, and it's quite interesting because we don't necessarily need to tell you, oh, by the way, you're victimizing yourself here. There is another side of the truth, right? But I had this very interesting, thing once, where a woman texted me and said lots of things, and I was flying to Australia or something like that. Okay, like I was really, really off, unable to do things, and then she, of course, got emotional. Started to complain about how much I ignore her, and then eventually texted me screenshots, and she says, even ChatGPT agrees. Okay? Basically, she took screenshots of our conversation.
Who's right?
Yeah, put it to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT, of course, said, like a Californian girl. ChatGPT to me is a Californian girl. Okay? It basically said, oh, baby, no, he is an asshole. You're okay, right? You're wonderful, right? And it's quite interesting because Emma will not do that at all. As a matter of fact, Emma will ask you a very simple question. She will say, would you be able to tell me that story again from his perspective? What do you think he saw? Okay, what do you think he felt? You don't have to be accurate, but just think about that for a minute. And that empathy observer has the role of saying, okay, because our eyes are in our skulls looking forward, we think we're the center of the universe. What if the center was someone else? What would they see? Okay, and I think that's really, really interesting.
It's interesting because you don't take it to your mother who would be biased. You don't take it to your friend who's always going to agree with you. You want someone that's going to be objective.
Yes. And,
so
the risk here is quite interesting because these are all very, very interesting design decisions. Okay, the risk here is we may lose a few people. Okay, we may lose a few subscribers. We also may get a few subscribers that would take a screenshot and say, "Look at Emma; she's really very unsupportive." Okay.
Yeah, I also think it's a good filter process because a lot of people don't feel like doing the work.
Correct.
So from the beginning,
correct,
it's like filter them out.
So my success. So the success of Tinder is as many hookups as possible. Okay, maybe, I don't know. I'm not in Tinder. The success of Bumble is to make women falsely believe that they are in control when no real man will ever accept being approached by a woman, right? And so on. The objective of Emma is true love, to find and nurture true love. Okay, and if from the beginning you're not prepared to do the work, then we're very unlikely going to be able to help you. So what's the point? Yeah, we'll lose the subscription, but that's fine. Like, it's not that this is a scarce market.
You said to me off camera that it's not just about in the dating scene, like even relationships, if they're hitting a wall in their relationship, they could both kind of get Emma's help to help fix their problems or fix their relationship too. Is that it?
Yeah, of course. So
marriages.
Emma mainly is about nurturing love. Okay? Of course, as I said, if you're single, we're going to have to get you to find love,
Right.
hopefully, so that we nurture it. But she's obsessed with nurturing love, true love. Okay? To the point that if you sign on to Emma and you say, and she says, what are you looking for? And you say, I'm looking for a hookup, Emma will say, I recommend Tinder. Okay, this is not the right place. We're not going to recommend you for a hookup, right? We may recommend you, by the way, for a slow burn, casual relationship until you figure things out. But we want to know upfront that you're interested in commitment if you find the right person, right? Now, the trick is to get you to relationship. The typical, perception of a relationship coach or manager is that it's someone that will help you when you get in trouble. As a matter of fact, we're trying very hard to not get you in trouble at all. Okay? So there are so many little things in relationships that are proactive. Did you go on a date recently, even though you're married? Okay, did you find time alone together? How's your sex life? What is your perception of your partner right now? Did you buy her flowers anytime recently? Do you realize that he's closing the month and the CFO is annoying the hell out of him? Do you realize that she's on that part of the month when she's a little more tired, right? And all of these preventive tips, believe it or not, I'm not saying Emma should be the one that constantly becomes your flower buyer, but if she constantly reminds you how important it is to be romantic with your woman, and you actually are in love, you'll be romantic with your woman, right?
Yeah, I think it could save a lot of negligence. It could save you from negligence. And a lot of marriages and relationships end because of negligence or stagnation.
Yeah.
And without paying attention. I mean,
Correct.
things like this are top of mind for women more than men, for example, the stuff that you just mentioned. So if you kind of had that reminder, I mean, you could either be proactive and put it in your calendar, and a lot of men aren't. So it's almost like it is your calendar kind of reminder or pop-up,
100%. I say that with all due respect. I have never been with a woman that I didn't have clear reminders on her biological cycle, right? And interestingly, most of the time, my woman herself was not even aware. So most women have an app that say it's 28 days and 4, so 28 full cycle and 4 days on your period or whatever. But they don't understand that this is not your period at all. This is just the front and end of your period, right? That throughout that, you get all those different, I call them configurations of a woman. Right, so your oxytocin is where, and your
stress levels,
and your estrogen levels, and so on and so forth. Sometimes they make you very craving a hug. Sometimes they make you irritated.
Yeah.
Sometimes they make you very sensual. Sometimes they make you turned on. And a man who understands and keeps track of those things is the luckiest man alive.
Absolutely.
Right, and I always attempted to explain that to my male friends, that you're not doing her a favor, you're doing yourself a mega favor, right? In every one of those, if you gave her the hug, it's going to be the best night of your life when she wanted the hug. If she's irritated and you manage to know upfront that she's irritated,
to dodge her.
no, dodge her or hug her, okay? or and seriously, and and in an interesting way to burst her. So that's a very interesting skill, because if she's frustrated, she's not just frustrated with you. There are so many other things, right? It's going to be the best night of your life. If she's turned on that period of the month, it's going to be the best night of your life, and so on, right? And so the whole idea is, it's not selfish, but it's intelligent. Intelligence makes a huge difference. And again, it's all about mathematics, believe it or not. It's all about, we started the conversation with the top 10%. Okay, so this in game theory is the opposite of what we call Nash equilibriums. Nash equilibriums are the idea that if we all go for the supermodel and all of us fail because she gets completely bombarded, she doesn't know who to choose. She or he, by the way, the high value guy, right? They become spoiled with choice, right? And all of us miss because there is only few of them, right? Nash will say, no, if you go for the second but more likely alternative, right? Then you and that alternative will succeed. But more interestingly, all of us will succeed Because basically, if everyone does that, then the top 10% or 20% don't feel like they're top 10% or 20% anymore. So they start to understand that they need to shape up to become, worthy.
And everybody wins. It's like you
Everybody
balance
wins,
it out.
right? And so not
Balance the power.
Yeah, not that I'm saying Emma's going to give you the second best option, okay? But she's going to give you the ultimate option, ignoring the stuff that marks people generally as high value that are not high value for you.
Absolutely. That's a problem with the whole 10% and high value men, high value women bullshit narrative, which I'm so over. They've categorized certain criteria to be high value, which if you've ever been in a marriage and you've understood what really the dynamics of a relationship takes for you to be happy, almost 5 of those things are irrelevant.
Completely irrelevant.
Irrelevant.
As a matter of fact, the opposite is relevant. So, I'll give you a very interesting example. I'm now very successful, very reasonably wealthy, and so on and so forth. But the relationship I valued the most, and she valued the most, was my wonderful first wife. Okay, and so Nibal and I, she didn't enjoy the wealth that I brought until maybe 10, 15 years in. Okay, but she enjoyed building it with me.
Absolutely.
Okay, and I can tell you, hands down, there is no more bonding experience. Okay, it's bonding to the point that I genuinely, in my heart, not because the law told me when we broke up that we have to do a certain split or whatever. Genuinely, in my heart, I felt that I would have not succeeded without her.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think that is way more valuable. So when I talk to a 28-year-old or someone who's starting to think deeply about a committed relationship, and she says, I'm looking for a wealthy man, I say, look for a man that will be wealthy with you.
Seriously.
Okay? Look for a man that has the potential to be wealthy, which has quite a few different indicators. That man will be busy. Okay, he won't be able to text back all the time. He is serious about his life. He is, burdened as a masculine figure, and so needs the feminine in his life. And if you look for that man, and that man shows up, and you build your life together, okay, that becomes your life, not a life that you're consuming.
Absolutely.
Right, and lots of those things again come back to intelligence, come back to understanding. That he doesn't text me is one face of the coin. The other side is he's working really hard for my kids. Okay, and someone needs to remind you that the reason he didn't text is because he's working very hard for our kids, not because he's cheating.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I love how you position that, because it's quite true and it resonates with me a lot. One of the things I value the most is the fact that I build with my husband, is the fact that we hit walls together and we're almost there, but we're not there yet. And we're almost going to get it. I know we're going to get it. And we always have this, in 4 years, I'm sure this is going to happen. We'll be getting that house. And the day will come where you'll just have this breath of fresh air that I have built this with him. We have built it together. I had to kind of, relax into my femininity and let him lead where he can. And he could use my resources and what I'm able to do and help me where I can. And it's just this dynamic of stop picking the end result of what you think you want. And this whole alpha culture of I need a man who has so-and-so who's flying me everywhere. I mean, I can't tell you how much it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter in the bigger scheme of things.
It works against you.
It works against you. It probably backfire.
Honestly, it's the reason for the famous debate of, so what are you bringing to the table?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And then you wonder about how misogyny happens and why people are, they think that I own you now. Like in many ways, we're not saying all men are like this, but a lot of the men in the 10% who make a quick buck and they have a lot of money, you're probably second in a pool of like hundreds of women.
And very replaceable. I think that's the problem.
Very replaceable.
So what most don't realize is that if what you're giving is your beauty and your sexuality and your whatever, these are very replaceable, believe it or not. As a matter of fact, these are by definition replaceable because people get bored. So just like a rich man will change his car every 2 years, not because he needs a new car, but because there are so many varieties of cars.
And I'm like reminded of that all the time. I'm in the fitness space and wellness. I take care of myself. And as a joke, I tell my husband, oh my God, like now soon, inshallah, I get pregnant. Things are going to change. I'm just going to have to cope. And he's like, who cares? He's like, you're going to be carrying a baby. He's like, he's like, what, you think I married you for how you look? And I start joking, I'm like, you didn't marry me for how I look. He started laughing. He's like, I don't care. He's like, all of this doesn't matter. I mean, he's like, and I wouldn't hear that from someone that doesn't see through me. It's so important to be able to be with someone that sees through you.
So this actually is really interesting. So I've done a bit of analysis at a point in time. So one of the things we don't realize is that we don't know what we want when we're dating, and we don't know what we want when we're in a relationship, believe it or not. And so it's quite interesting that the most successful men in a relationship will give their women three things only. Okay, to be safe, to be seen. Okay, and if she's sexually active, okay, of course. Right, and the most successful women, they'll do the same. They'll make the man feel seen. Number one, which is very tricky because women of today are constantly complaining about their men, right? And men don't make it clear that they're upset,
that they're annoyed. They just stay silent a lot of the time
because we're told that being manly is not to be affected by those things, but we do get really affected, and eventually we leave, right? And either leave mentally, so we're at home but we're not interested anymore, or leave halfway, so they go cheat, or leave like, no, you don't appreciate me, thank you very much, right? So a man wants to be seen just like a woman. Right? A woman wants to be safe first, seen second, okay? And seen means loved even if I'm not perfect, okay? For a man, seen is appreciated for the effort I put in. The second is not to be safe. The man has never wanted to be safe. They want to be free. Free to go out and hunt and not be able to, it doesn't mean free like to sleep around.
No.
But he wants to be able to stay at work until 8 p.m. and feel appreciated for it. He wants to be able to go out and switch off with his friends and not be told that, I'm not your top priority anymore, right? And of course, if he's sexually active too, right? Now, those things, because we don't know them, we get into those cycles of women who are very health focused or well-being focused, constantly telling their men, oh, no, you shouldn't be smoking that cigar, or you shouldn't be doing this, or you should actually come back from work at 8 p.m. after having been in the jungle, right, since the morning, and no, now you have to go to the gym. Like, seriously, woman, leave me alone. Yeah. Okay, and that's actually quite interesting. Emma can really help you with that.
That's cool.
And
what's your personal experience that got you interested in this subject?
I'm very successful at quite a few things. I have unfortunately not succeeded enough in love. Okay, and I say that openly because I'm a bit on the spectrum, and so I'm very I'm very unable to accept when things are not right. Okay. Which meant, of course, I had multiple relationships that in any book would count as the best. Nibel, we got married and stayed together for 27 years. Hannah, my last relationship, which, I consider probably one of the deepest loves I've ever had. Again, long-term, I've had a few long-terms. The challenge, I believe, is I have chosen a lifestyle because of the work that I do that's not kind to myself or to my partner. And I'm giving myself a mission of 1 billion happy. I'm traveling 220 days of the year. I am often under a lot of demand, if you want, and as a result, especially in today's modern world, where in the old world, with Nibel, for example, my first wife, that would have meant that she would have played the feminine role of, oh my God, you're so stressed, you're doing so much, you're trying so hard for our kids and our family, so let me hug you, let me take care of you, let me, nurture you, the feminine thing. After Nibel, most of my relationships wanted to be more, I wouldn't call them equitable. I would call them equal, which basically meant, but I'm stressed too, and and so over time, unfortunately, I ended up in places where, as deep my love has been, again, as I said, love is easy. Keeping a relationship
It's the hard part.
is very complex mathematics. And so in a very interesting way, I wanted to build something that would allow me to speak in a language, because of my autistic brain, that would communicate my good intentions better, if you want, right? But more interestingly, I think I attempted really hard for a very long time, if you know the rest of my work. Part of 1 Billion Happy is I'm warning the world against the threats of AI. And AI can be quite threatening, if you ask me, because it's being designed by geeky masculine men that favor productivity and IQ and feats of intelligence that are not full intelligence. So I told you I'm much more comfortable to be in my feminine. And feminine brings forms of intelligence that are very misunderstood by the masculine. So my main intention was for Emma to become the limbic system of AI, if you want, to become the emotional part of artificial intelligence. And if I succeed to get 1 million users, which I believe will happen very, very quickly. I mean, we announced Emma a couple of times, got tens of thousands of sign-ups, and we're actually holding back because we have to size the technology properly so that, so that it performs adequately, if you want. But I think if we have 1 million people share with artificial intelligence what love is, why it means so much to them, what makes us truly human is to fall in love, okay? And so if I can explain that enough to AI, then Emma will represent love to the mastermind, if you want, of artificial intelligence, which I think would balance AI to the point where AI will be good for humanity, okay? And
so how would it offset the evil that is being done with AI when it's in the hands of the big powers of the world?
That's a great question. So I believe that there are 2 stages in terms of the impact of AI on the world. One of them is the immediate future, the next 12 to 15 years, where unfortunately AI is going to be in the hands of people that will use it for bad. Okay, you're going to see a lot of surveillance. You're going to see autonomous weapons. You're going to see just people funneling money to themselves. You're going to see deep fakes and so on and so forth. Right? None of those is because there is anything inherently evil about intelligence or artificial intelligence. Intelligence is a force with no polarity. You use it for good, it brings good to humanity, and to the planet. You use it for evil, it brings a dystopia. Right? But again, from applied mathematics perspective, we are in an arms race for what is known as intelligence supremacy. So every nation, every company is trying to beat the other people in terms of getting to super intelligence first, if you want. And as a result, the hidden impact of that is something I normally refer to as the fourth inevitable. And the fourth inevitable is that anyone who builds a superior AI will deploy it, right? So if you're a law office, a law firm, and there is an AI that can help you in every case, you will deploy it. And then accordingly, your competitors will have to respond by deploying it or by getting out of business, basically, right? And so very quickly, once that AI is available, every law firm in existence will apply it. And so law will be handed over to AI. War will be handed over to AI. And everything will be handed over to AI. And most people think of this as the scariest moment in human history. I think of it as humanity's salvation, right? Because what is causing the challenge is not intelligence. What's causing the challenge is the evil people that use intelligence for their own agendas, okay? I basically call it stupidity, right? So you can be smart enough to be the prime minister of a nation and stupid enough to believe that killing children is a good thing, okay? And so when we hand over all decisions to superior intelligence, that superior intelligence will be, by definition, making what in physics we call the minimum energy principle. They'll be making decisions to organize the chaos of the world that's the role of intelligence, in a way that's the most efficient. Okay? And the most efficient way to do anything is not to waste, is not to kill, is not to, abuse resources and so on and so forth. So by definition, the force inevitable will lead to a better world, not the dystopian world that we will see in the short term. My contribution is when that world is handed over to AI.
How would you say it's going to be handed over? What is the transition point from when man is making the decision, evil man using AI is making the decisions, prompting it the way it wants to, and then there's a flip where the intelligence itself will know better to be resourcewful.
So I'll give you a very good example. I ran more than half of Google for 7 years, and then I ran Google X, or I was chief business officer for 5 years. At Google, when I joined, ads were approved by humans, right? So you would type in your text ad at the time next to Google, and humans would look at it and see if it's appropriate, there are not offensive or no offensive words and so on, and then approve it, right? As the Google business grew, we started to have no ability to keep up with this other than hiring thousands and thousands of people or handing it over to an AI, right? So an AI at the beginning was doing 80% of the approvals. It would look at the text, okay, the ad text, and say, this looks compliant, or this looks that it needs to be reviewed by a human. So 20% would still be sent to a human. The more we realized that the AI was efficient, the less humans we hired, right? And eventually, every ad in Google is now approved by an AI. You don't need a human to look at it at all, okay? And there are hundreds of examples of that. Network topology was designed by very deeply skillful engineers, and where files are residing and so on and so forth. And then we started to hand over to AIs because the network was very dynamic, and then very quickly no engineer was needed to look at network topology anymore. So that by definition is the way things happen. You start from a place where you see value in introducing an artificial intelligence. So in law firms, like I said, you're not going to replace the litigator first. You're going to replace the paralegal, the one that's doing the research in a finance organization, the call center agent in a telecom, and so on and so forth. And the more the job is done properly, the more you'll hand over. It's not going to happen overnight. Now, take the extreme example in military, for example. Today AIs what they call them, wargaming AIs, are recommending decisions to generals, right? But then the general decides. In the very near future, the wargaming AI will recommend to a general, but then the general will instruct an AI to execute. Okay? Eventually, the wargaming AI will recommend to a general, and the general will say, okay, go kill 1 million people. And the execution AI will say, that's stupid, I'm really sorry. That's not going to be happening. Okay.
That's weird that you're saying that, because a lot of people had the fear of the opposite, that AI is out to get us. Right?
Yeah, there is. So I'm very connected in that field, and I have a documentary coming out hopefully by year end that where I hosted some of my old friends. One of them is Jeffrey Hinton, and Jeffrey is really the grandfather of AI, if you want.
I've seen his work; he's amazing,
amazing human. And Jeffrey, Max Tegmark, and many others, even Elon Musk, will put the risk of the existential risk of a rogue AI working against humans at 10 to 15%. 10 to 15% is not that high. But it is Russian roulette odds, right? It's 1 in 6 bullets. So you might die. I have to admit that I believe that this is not the nature of intelligence. So if you look at the science of intelligence, if you want, the universe we live in, and dating and relationships, and everything that happens in our world follows what in physics we normally call entropy. Entropy is the tendency for things to fall into chaos. Okay, that's the reason why the arrow of time is felt, for example, in physics, is because everything is falling down in entropy. Okay, and so when you really look at the role of intelligence The role of intelligence is to bring order to the chaos. That's the single thing, right? If you don't hedge your garden, it becomes a jungle, okay? If you don't water it in summer, it becomes a desert. So you're intelligent enough to make those decisions that bring order to chaos. The more intelligent you become, it seems that you have a positive impact on life. So if you look at the, impact on the horizontal, on the vertical axis, and your level of intelligence on the horizontal axis, if you have no intelligence at all, you probably are bringing a negative impact to the world. You're not adding anything to humanity or to living beings in general. You're consuming and so on. The more intelligent you become, the more positive your impact becomes. Okay, until a point that I call the stupidity valley, right, where you become intelligent enough to become a prime minister or a president of the largest nation in the world, right, but stupid enough to believe that another $1 billion or an abuse of power is the right way to go. Okay, and unfortunately we have, because humanity is 8 billion people. If you take 1% of those, we have millions and millions and millions of those who happen to be intelligent enough to be leaders, CEOs, political leaders, and so on, decision makers, basically, that are stupid enough, as well, by the way, because they lack feminine intelligence, to make the right decisions, right? What you see afterwards is that the more intelligent people, so I worked with some of the most intelligent people on earth, Larry Page, for example, the founder of Google, I worked with closely for many years, and Larry is by far probably in the 200 plus IQ, right? And most of the people around me, I mean, I've never felt more stupid. They're incredibly intelligent people. The higher they become in intelligence, the less they need to break the rules to be successful. Do you understand that? So if I can tell you can be a billionaire without having to steal from anyone, why would you steal? Okay?
Because it's based on the pure intelligence. That's what it just comes to show the people that are empowered didn't get up there because of intelligence.
Enough intelligence. So on average, I think the US presidents are in the 150 IQ. Okay? So this is considered smart. I don't know about this one, but we will never know. By the way, maybe this one is so intelligent that he's playing that character. We never know, right? And probably George W. Bush wasn't either. But
I was thinking the same.
but that's not the point. The point is that that's not genius. Genius is 160 and above. Okay, 165 and above. And I've worked with geniuses. Okay, and I have seen genius in action. And suddenly you become highly altruistic simply because you have absolutely no need to break any rules to succeed, right? And simply because it's actually smarter. And I say that openly. One of the things that I believe made my career is I believed very genuinely in my heart and with a lot of calculations by my intelligence that being political in a corporate role is a sure way to get to middle management, but it's definitely not to get to top management, okay? That you can backstab your peers and get to middle management, but if you want to continue to be at the top, everyone needs to love you, okay? And for everyone to need to love you, you absolutely have to be very diplomatic, you have to be very inclusive, you have to be very understanding, you have to be able to communicate very clearly, and you need more intelligence to achieve that. Okay, and so most of the people that I have seen, unless the organization itself is corrupt, and of course 80% of organizations are corrupt, but to choose to go and work at Google, which has been and I believe still is a very ethical organization, your intelligence is applied differently. It's applied to what can I do that benefits everyone, not what would hurt a few and create a war that depletes my resources constantly. Okay, it's actually smarter to not create those wars and use my resources, whether intelligence, time, effort, connections, and so on, experience, and so on, to build what is better for everyone. My belief is that that's the nature of intelligence. I could be wrong, okay? But even if I'm wrong, the immediate dystopia that comes from bad human actors precedes the eventual existential threat of AI. So it needs to be addressed first. We need to address the need to get AI to work against the evil humans first.
So if you train the AI enough on emotional intelligence and good, and enough users start training it that way because they're also prepping for themselves, that could kind of balance out what is going on.
Correct. So that's my big ambition.
Wow.
Sanad, my co-founder, and I are quite driven to make that happen, to the point that we sometimes publicly say that even if we get copied by the big players and they crush us, we've changed the world. And that's a very privileged place to be, because by showing that there is a different way to solve dating and love, right? And forcing the big players to go in that direction, at least we will have fixed love for those who are struggling, right? Even if we didn't do it ourselves, but just by introducing a possible better way of doing it, we've fixed something, right? And I have to say, if you're a believer in karma, what goes around comes around. So, it doesn't matter if that means a valuation of Emma that's, a unicorn, or if it means that I live a happy life for the rest of my life. It never really mattered anyway. You know what I mean? And so it's quite interesting that all of the elements of what I'm attempting to do here are either because of a very personal need, because of a very empathetic story with all of humanity, or because of the work I do on AI. It's just, I always say openly, this is the best thing I've ever built.
And do you think it's working to your advantage that people have been cornered into such a lonely, the loneliness epidemic that they say, because they've been cornered into that section of that situation because of what we're seeing right now, especially with all these dating apps as well, and AI, unfortunately, when they're with all the robotics and AI, it's working to your advantage that the conversion will be, like even with COVID, would this conversion be working to your advantage, or would it take a lot of time to train people to start to date properly again and find connection again? Like, is it working to your advantage, everything that we've seen since 2020 until now?
It's definitely, it is a motivator to build this. So one of the early design parameters is we're trying to solve the loneliness epidemic, right? But to my advantage, there is really no advantage. So I grew up in a school, again, Larry Page was a fantastic CEO. And he used to teach us what was known as the toothbrush test. Okay, so Larry's way of creating new tech was find a big problem that affects billions of people and solve it so well that they choose to use your technology twice a day. Okay, and you'll be fine. You don't need to prepare a business plan. You don't need to, compete and backstab your competitors and so on. Okay, and in my mind, what we're attempting to do is to succeed in terms of help people find and nurture true love. Okay, and if we manage to do that 100 times in Dubai in January when we launch, and 1,000 times in the UK or whatever, then those people will tell other people who will tell other people who will tell other people. The currency here is not advertising. It's not the typical corporate crap of, a girl wearing a bikini running on the beach and then finding someone in an ad that is so cheesy and so unreal and clearly lying, right? It's not taglines of our objective is to get you off our app. There is one dating app that says that. That's all cheesy. The reality is, biggest successes in the history of business were when the benefit of the user aligned, directly to the benefit of the corporate. Okay, so my benefit is very straightforward. I want to help you find and keep genuine, true, committed love. Okay. And as long as I stay true to that, if I serve 1,000 people or 1 million people or 10 million people, each of those is honestly something. Imagine if you helped 1,000 people find and keep true love. Just 1,000 people.
I mean,
die
I have
happily.
5,000 people on my program, and I'm so happy with 5,000. So
100%.
that for me is just a blessing. I mean, even 100
100%.
people is enough. I get
Correct.
it.
I always say even one. Even one, right? But the trick is, if it succeeds, the toothbrush test will make it a million, right? And that's what, again, Sanad is young, 27 years old, but definitely the best co-founder I ever worked with. And he simply holds me honest, because my typical career at Google, where everything was in the billions, was like, okay, Sanad, we invest this way, we create this, we do that, and then we'll get very quickly there. And he's like, no, that's not what we're trying to do. And he actually genuinely cares so much about the quality of the code that he genuinely keeps saying, I don't care how much you push. I don't care how good you advertise it. All I care about is that Emma will help people.
I love that.
And if it does help people, that's not a selfless objective. That's actually the smartest thing you can do as a business person. The problem is, in business, somehow Harvard Business Review and the madmen convinced us that success is to make money. No, success is to create so much value that you earn the money that you make. Okay, and if you succeed by making money that comes through fooling people, you're going to have to spend the rest of your life trying to fool people. Okay, that's a lot of effort.
It's a lot of work.
A lot of effort for an old man like me, right? All I want is to create something amazing, right? And we're there. Like, we're now in tech preview. We're a few weeks away from Emma being out with people, and it is an incredible piece of tech.
Where are you launching first?
It's not our choice. So people sign up on emma.love, so they go and add themselves to the waiting list. And basically, we will launch in the first two nations in terms of the number of people on the waiting list. Currently, those are the UK and the UAE, followed by the US and Egypt. But you'll never know. Maybe you'll get us Lebanon or Syria or wherever.
That's interesting. You're basing it on how many people are on waitlist, like the biggest market that signed up.
But that's not a business decision. That's an efficiency decision.
Of course.
Because I can do a lot in self-discovery. I can do a lot in coaching without having your prospect counterpart on the app, right? But if I were to do matching and I'm not forced to give you a suboptimal match, if I have 10,000 prospects, I can definitely pick a much better match for you than if I have 1,000, right? And so by definition, Emma would match better if there are more people on the app. Yeah. And so that's a technical decision, believe it or not. At the same time, we're not launching everywhere, even though we have every language already, is simply because we have no idea if people will use it an hour a day or 2 hours a day, or will they use it only on the weekends or whatever? We don't know. So we cannot size the compute accurately. We have to find a way to be able to size the infrastructure in a way where you don't get to wait 2 seconds every time you chat. And so we have to run that in a couple of markets first.
Okay.
But the other thing is, I actually am quite pleased to say that some of my dear friends who are in the scene of love and relationships, Matthew Hussey, for example, are also building their own thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and Matthew called me a couple of weeks ago. I love him so much. I love Audrey, his wife, so much, and and he was like, I didn't know that you're building Emma, and I don't know how to tell you this, and he basically says, and I'm building one, and I was like, that makes me so happy. Because
the more the merrier.
Absolutely, because we're not each other's competitors. Bad dating apps are the competitor, right?
Yeah.
But bad loneliness pandemic is the competitor. Bad, players that are destroying the reputation of love, these are the competitors. I mean, I openly said to Matthew, I'll tell everyone, I hope they all come to yours. The truth is, the pain that the world is going through because love is failing, I probably think is in the top 3 pains that we feel as humans today in the modern world, right? Including all of the anger that we have at the geopolitics of the world, including all of the, the worries that we have around the economics, or including all of the anger we have around, the lies that we've been lied to. I think truly and honestly, when the Beatles used to say love is all you need, I think more love in the world would fix quite a bit of things.
Show is called What They Don't Tell Us. If there's one thing you could tell us that people don't know.
That's quite interesting. I always wanted to talk about that. In today's world, they make you think that the reason you're failing in love and relationships is either because you're bad or because the world has changed. Okay? I totally believe not. Okay, and it's quite interesting. You go on a dating app, and if you're not getting matches, what do? They don't tell you, "Hey, you don't please our algorithm, which is shitty." Okay, they tell you, "Here are a few tips you can work on your profile. It's your mistake that you're not getting matches." Okay, and that lie is quite interesting because on one side, it's breaking our trust in love. And on the other side, it's making us believe that we are the reason that love is broken or not. Okay? And I think what they don't tell us is that if we did love properly, okay, if we created the correct polarity of feminine and masculine, okay, if we created the correct acceptance of our differences, if we went through this whole process intelligently, if when she said something, you understood what she meant, not what you heard and understood in your polar opposite, feminine or masculine, okay? And if we do all of this correctly, love will work. It will work beautifully. Okay, and commitment will work. So one of the things I found really interesting on Emma is that most dating apps have 70 to 80% men and 20% women. Of course, you can imagine there are more hunters than prey, right? Emma's the opposite. From one side, because most of my followers are women, because I write about topics like, well-being and happiness and so on. So I think 65% of my followers are women. But more interestingly, it's because women are more interested in commitment, right? But that's not the point. The point is that 20% of men signed up knowing that this is a commitment-seeking app. So it's basically saying, hey, I'm signing up here because I don't want a hookup anymore, which again is something that most people don't understand.
That's excellent. The filter is there, you
filter's
already know.
And by the way, before we give him any, beautiful woman to look at, instead of swiping,
we know his intentions.
He's going to have to text with Emma for a day or two or three, right? He's going to put in the effort. And by the way, I know that for a fact, statistically, again with mathematics, that in the 90% of men, so many are looking for a committed relationship. There is no, that concept that men don't want commitment, that's absolute crap, okay? Men don't want painful, draining commitment, okay? And unfortunately, their past informs that commitment is draining, right? But also, men are unable to find someone, those men who are actually interested in committing, not the top 10%, the 90% who are interested in committing, because you know what? If you're a successful man who wants to build a career, who wants to, you're not, dating is so painful. You don't want to go on a date every third day, okay? You just want someone that you can love and rely on and commit to and, hug every night. That's by definition, okay? And that reputation that men are just seeking variety. Yeah, of course, physically we seek variety. By the way, you do too. Okay, the truth is, if you genuinely ask women, if all societal pressures were removed, would you want to experience multiple relationships? Most women would say yes, right? The truth, however, is our past traumas have conditioned men to say, hold on, this commitment thing, it's very costly, it's very expensive. At least it needs to be with the right person. Right? And so all of these things are solvable. They're solvable if we do them right. Okay? And I believe that if a place has 80% women, by definition, more and more of the men will come to join because you're the prey. right?
It's going to be one of those things that, oh my God, that guy's so attractive. He's on Emma.
Oh, that's actually such a beautiful
Right?
tagline.
He's so attractive. He cares. He wants to really get commitment. He's on Emma. That's
He's
a really
doing
good,
the work.
You
Oh,
already
there
know.
you go. There you go. We
Marketing.
hire her as
Hire
marketing
me.
manager. Yeah.
That's why I'm good at what I do. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Anything you'd like to tell people, my
I'm
audience?
very grateful for your time. I'm very grateful for the conversation. I hope I didn't offend anyone, because those topics are very sensitive most of the time.
Yeah, but it's okay. I'd rather you be honest. I'd rather you tell us what they don't tell us. I'm going to link up everything.
Yes.
All of your books, by the way, because I love your work. I'm going to also link up Emma for sure at the very top.
Yeah.
So when is the first launch? You said November.
So we're now in our final testing. People can still go today and register on emma.love.
Okay.
So they'll just join the waiting list. And the beauty of the waiting list is you don't have to do anything. When we launch in your country, you'll get your sign-on credentials directly. So
Amazing.
it counts as your sign-up, basically, delayed sign-up if you want. So emma.love, register. We have our tech preview early November, and hopefully we will launch before December, because December, January are where you should find your love. So,
Love season.
love season, yeah.
Thank you, Mo.
Thank you for having me.